The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization has launched its flagship report, The State of the World's Forests 2024. I'm a reasonably regular visitor to the Congo Basin, and after having visited that part of the world for more than a couple of decades now, I would say that the state of the Congo Basin is pretty bloody horrid, because every time I go there, more and more forest has been deforested. The same is true of northern Mozambique and Angola and many other places. We are joined now via Zoom by Amy Duchelle, who is the team leader of the Forests and Climate Change team at the FAO. Amy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
It's a long and complex report, so I'm asking you to do the impossible and, summarize the complex and make it simple. But in a nutshell, what is the state of the world's forests?
Well, the state of the world's forests, it's a bit of a mixed picture. There have been some good stories around the world of deforestation slowing in some places, but forests are under pressure from climate-related stress. We see wildfires, we see pest and disease outbreaks, droughts, floods, and also at the same time, many people, millions, depend on forest products for their livelihoods, and forest product demand is rising. So this report, it's the state of the world's forest sector innovations towards a more sustainable future. And what we do is lay out the challenges, but then actually present some positive stories of innovation that are happening around the world, including across the African continent, that can help us sustainably manage our forests for a more sustainable future.
And chat to us about a couple of those innovative responses to the situation.
Well, there's one of those is about agroforestry. So, agroforestry is really mixed and tree crops and forests, and they provide both climate, biodiversity, but also food security benefits. And there's a really interesting case in this report from Mozambique that's using a long-term agroforestry initiative and trying to connect that to emerging carbon markets. So that's one of them. Another is related to bringing together the agriculture and forestry sectors in landscape approaches in places like Kenya and Nigeria. And there's others related to sustainable wildlife management and bolstering legal tools that involve communities who manage wildlife in their development to really understand how best to promote sustainable practices. So it's important because I think we often think of innovation as drones or just technology, and that's super important, of course, and some of the cases focus on forest monitoring. But innovation, as we define it at FAO, is technological, social, policy, institutional, and financial innovation. And those innovations often work together in bundles to bring about even more powerful change.
Yes, sustainability is a word that has been around as a buzzword, as a keyword for decades, and a lot of the things to which it has been applied, sometimes in a wistful way, it hasn't really worked. There hasn't been a sense of sustainability. But is it your feeling that that is starting to change, that the innovations that you highlight in the report are starting to make the world's forests seem more likely to have a sustained life, that deforestation can be halted and potentially reversed?
I think definitely, it is. The challenges are huge, and I certainly don't want to underestimate those. But if we think back even to, 15 years ago, what forest monitoring looked like then compared to what it looks like now, across the world, countries have developed huge advances in national forest monitoring capacity, and that's linked directly to policy frameworks, to work to halt and reverse deforestation. And so I think we have to remember where we've come, even just over the past decade and a bit, and the leaps and bounds that have been made. We also feature in the report big initiatives like the Great Green Wall of the Sahel and Sahara. These are, huge initiatives that are in working in extremely challenging contexts to restore landscapes and really engaging communities and women and youth in those communities to be involved in restoration initiatives and big partnerships like the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration and its flagship initiatives that highlight success. Because I think we've just got a lot of we've got a lot of challenge, we've got a lot of bad news, but there is so much happening at different levels. And I think these stories are stories of hope and hopefully inspiring examples of what could be applied in other countries.
Yes, I mean, what has got to happen, not just with the conservation of forests, but the conservation with living, a tree is a living thing, but, animals rather than just botanical sustainability, is to make locals benefit from the continued presence of these things in their environments. I remember 10, 15 years ago being in West Africa at the site of a white-necked rockfowl, the Picathartes gymnocephalus, and the forest all around was being cleared, and where this bird had been hanging out for a while, it was going to move on, and its survival was not guaranteed. And we said, tourists, birders like us, we love this bird. People are going to come and see it. And the guys with the machetes said, when? What we're cutting down, we can sell now because we need to sell it to get something so we can buy food now. We can't wait another 6 months for another group of birders to come along and have a look at the strange bird. So you've got to make these initiatives work for locals, work for local communities. Otherwise, they're kind of doomed.
Indeed, I mean, you say this perfectly, and the incentives need to be there, and I think this report really does highlight multiple innovations that are helping to sustainably use forests and build these green value chains, and really thinking of a forest-based development. FAO, our mission is to end hunger, and forests are part of this mission. Forests are for development, sustainable development, and can be conserved, restored, and sustainably managed. And we have the evidence for this. The incentives, though, indeed need to be there, and they need to reach the local communities and producers on the ground.
Thank you very much for chatting to us. Really appreciate it. Amy Duchelle is the team leader of the Forests and Climate Change Team at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.